We are desperate to ensure that the Philadelphia 76ers can be who we think they should be. Last night they were, and they get a big win over the Clippers. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, ESPN2. Jason Fitz, Mike Golic Jr. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the show. Pennzoil Performance Line. And the story last night, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and, in fairness, Josh Richardson all come in. They have big nights. The 76ers get the win over the Clippers. They're at home. We get this little, it's these little nuggets, guys, where all of a sudden you see it and you're like, guess what? There's hope. The 76ers can be who we thought they would.
Well, if you look at it from, we just talked about basketball yesterday about ratings being down and what was the hook, where was the traction, why we think some of the ratings are down. And there's no doubt if the 76ers, because of, you have two superstars there, but Joel Embiid is a player of today, social media star, that if he can be great on the court as well and have some drama, which he does with hometown fans in Philadelphia, and as someone who's been in Philadelphia for a lot of years knows about those fans and how it can be, this could be great if this team starts to really make a run. They're sitting in fifth right now, 13 out. The top of the division or the top of the conference, but everybody talked about, could this be the year? And if it's not, are one of those big guys going to be gone?
Yeah, and that was starting to be sort of the rumor mill that was beginning to churn, was would they move on from one of these guys? Joel Embiid, the Instagram post that you referenced, cited the Batman line, you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. To which Jimmy Butler responds, I know a place where villains are welcome. And Joel Embiid goes back and forth there. And so all of these things start to happen, and then we get them being themselves. And it's what I said to you yesterday. Like, there is no substitute in sports for just being who you are. And Joel Embiid's kind of said as much. Like, I tried to be someone I'm not during the course of this year. And we remember him saying going in, I'm going to try and subdue it. People were calling me immature, all that stuff. No. You got to go get those likes and clicks up on there, because clearly it unlocks a guy who now, albeit at home where the Sixers have done a lot of winning, unlocks the guy that we all expect to see.
Well, you mentioned the Sixers have done a lot of winning at home. They're 25-2 at home now, but that hasn't stopped the Philly crowd that you know very well from booing Embiid. I mean, that's part of where this comes from. Embiid's had his fair share of, let's say, a mixed reaction from Philly, because Philly fans have waited a long time, which raised the question last night after the game of whether he was the hero or the villain. Embiid saying maybe a little bit of both.
I'm always going to be both. I'll start with my city. I love my city. They've shown me a lot of love since I've been here. So, we go through up and downs, and, we learn from it, So there's nothing more. We just, playing with each other, just having fun. Like I said, I'm back to being a good sorry for cussing. But, I'm just going to do my thing.
I just love him. He tries to talk so tough at times, and then every now and then, sorry for cussing.
Yeah, just throw it in there. A good bleep hole is what he said, which is what he said he wants to get back to doing. Not necessarily a bad guy, but one who's going to go out and play with that edge, and I think that was the difference.
And remember when Shaq and Barkley called him out earlier this year, and sometimes you think of athletes today basically poo-pooing what the older player has to say, but he didn't. He took it to heart. He said, I agree. I need to do more of what they're saying. And that's really been the issue in Philadelphia, is they haven't. We keep waiting for this team and these players to materialize into what everybody thinks they can be.
Well, I think that's the issue, though, is it was call and response. It was reactionary. It wasn't consistent before, right? It was, I got called out by these guys, so I'll go out and play hard now. And then you hit a lull again. This needs to be intrinsic. This needs to come from them. And I think Joel Embiid getting back to being the guy that's getting into it with Marcus Morris that we saw late in the game. Double technicals for them in one of Marcus Morris's first handful of games with the Clippers. That's the guy you need, who's going to go out there and agitate, who's going to incite boos and cheers and all sorts of response. At his best, that's who Joel Embiid is. He's someone who, right, wrong, or indifferent, is going to get a response from fans, players, and everybody else.
Well, and he got that response last night after the double technical, as you mentioned. He turns around with the crowd, does the shimmy. I mean, he goes straight 80s wrestler sometimes, where he's just getting the crowd pumped up. That's where he's at his best. He is at his best when he's agitating. So the question is, how do you get that out of him every night? Because at some point, part of that lies at the feet of Brett Brown, the coach, trying to figure out how to get whatever that version. When Joel Embiid is angry or tied in, or however you want to say it, when he's got that extra edge, that's when he's at his best. And frankly, he's going to have that if the 76ers want to compete with Giannis and the Bucks at all.
To answer your question, certainly you can say partly on the coach, you can say partly on teammates who know his personality, but mainly it's on Joel Embiid. I will always say this anybody that wants to say it's the coach's job to motivate and to do this, partially I'll always agree, but mainly it's on the player. It's on Joel Embiid to decide, I want to be like this, and I need to be like this every night if I want to be considered one of the players that people think I want to be, and he wants to be. I mean, before the season, he talked about being, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, winning a title. He talked about all these things that he wanted to do, not only for the team, but personally as well, and then wasn't backing it up on the court. That's on Embiid. Overall, that's on Embiid.
That part's on Embiid, but I think the one thing that Brett Brown and the staff can do to help is one of the things he also talked about before the season was doing less of the trash talking, doing less of all of the things that we thought made Joel Embiid, because he was responding to more people from the outside. Like, that's the difficulty when you live out in the age of social media the way he does, is you also tend to take in a lot more of that stuff. And so Brett Brown and everyone else reminding Joel Embiid there that it's okay to be the Joel Embiid that we've seen before, that it's okay to be like coaches always tell guys, just be who you are. Like, right. If that's what you need to play at a high level, then be that and we'll figure it out, especially when it's one of the cornerstones of your team. Because what it also allows when he goes out and does that is Ben Simmons to not have to do any of that. And when Ben Simmons doesn't have to do any of that, he can go up. Ben Simmons definitely still not shooting threes, still kind of an issue, but a guy that goes out there and put the cuffs on Kawhi Leonard in some instances and is, as we heard on the broadcast last night, the guy who's going to consistently defend your team's best player. And so when he can do all that and push in transition and not have to worry about being like the vocal face of anything, both of these guys are at their best.
Isn't that amazing what you just said? Because he did play him well. And Kawhi still shot over 50% and had 30 points.
Absolutely.
I mean, the dude is ridiculous.
Kawhi was ridiculous. Simmons, 26, 12, and 10 last night for Philadelphia. But I see a lot of what you're saying, Mike, and you can see a lot of that in Brett Brown's reaction. This is what Brett had to say after, coach of the Sixers had to say after about Joel being, a little bit louder.
It's Joel, and is it ideal? Maybe not. Is it Joel? Yes. Is there a maverick in a lot of really, really good players? Yes. And there's this, sort of side of Joe that has always been there, that it's playful's probably not the word that best suits this, but it's that. It's some phrasing of that. And, we move on.
Well, and what we saw last night, to that extent, was maybe the best of all of it. And Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst, reminded all of us that this is what we want from the 76ers.
This is the one, Brett Brown. Show this to your team. This is how we play. And if we play this way, we'll find ourselves in the NBA Finals. The problem is it's just not that consistent that we see them roll out the blueprint. Tonight was one of those nights, and they're really good at home, obviously. But the way they played is just perfect for their personnel.
You sit there and we talk about Simmons and Embiid. I get it. But Josh Richardson, you can't not put him in this one. 17 of his 21 in the fourth quarter. He had the highest plus minus. He was plus 24 of anybody on the 76ers. So you have to add him into that equation, at least of last night.
I mean, it's great for last night, but none of it works without those two.
No, it's true.
Like that, I think that's what we all kind of understand about this Sixers group, right? Is it ain't going to work unless these guys do too. So much so that because it wasn't, we were talking and speculating about breaking it up.
Well, Golic and Wingo presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with the Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you. I think Legler's right. Obviously, this is the blueprint. I still think we got to give Milwaukee love. Like, we're desperate to find a reason why there's going to be some competition for the Bucks, and Giannis is just.
Well, I think we give them. Here's the thing, though. Milwaukee is already the top. They're there, so there's really kind of not a lot to talk about. They're doing exactly what we thought they would do. The 76ers aren't. So they're a story more than anything else.
The difference between the two teams, to me, Giannis is better this year than he was last year. And we haven't seen Joel or Ben Simmons be better this year than they were last year.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.